Clemson Hotline is on the air, a one-hour talk show giving Clemson fans a power hour of Tiger sports talk. Clemson Hotline is presented by y'all.com and brought to you by Amtrak. Clemson Hotline is direct from Tiger Country on the network of radio stations across the great state of South Carolina, and a podcast edition of our show is available for download in iTunes. Hello, everyone. I'm Lawton Swann. Welcome back into the program. Kicking it off here for you, bowl season, bowl mania. Can I call it that? I don't know. I wrote an article this past week for TigerNet.com. I hope you had an opportunity to read it. If you didn't, going into my bowl season blues and how the situation that we've been presented with because of the BCS doesn't exactly get me hyped up, and I give my spiel, much like I did on TigerNet Talk to some degree on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, that I'm not exactly fired up about bowl season. But I am fired up about the Tigers versus the Tigers over in Atlanta. I think Clemson clearly landed in one of the best bowls available. We're going to talk Heisman Trophy. We're going to talk a little bit Clemson LSU, plus Clemson Arizona as the Tigers lose a heartbreaker in Littlejohn. But don't fret. There seems to be a team on the rise maybe coming out of the foothills of South Carolina. We'll be back. Stay with us, Tiger fans. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you.
And now the number one reason to get Genie from DirecTV, the most advanced HD DVR ever. It serves your entire home with one HD DVR. Call now and get a free upgrade to Genie. Packages start at $29.99 a month.
Call 800-399-5101 now and get the NFL Sunday ticket free for the rest of the season. That's 800-399-5101.
DirecTV or an RVU-enabled TV device required for each additional room. Additional and advanced receiver fees apply. Offer requires 24-month agreement and qualifying package. $29.99 package not eligible. Offer ends 2/6/13. New approved customers only. Lease required. Other conditions apply. Call for details.
Attention pain sufferers. Are you one of the millions of Americans who suffer from arthritis pain, back pain, muscle strains, or any other pain? Get pain relief in minutes with real-time pain relief. It can work that fast. If your pain is preventing you from enjoying life, or worse, if pain is keeping you up at night, visit rtpr.com/radio for your free sample. We're so confident real-time pain relief will help you. We'll even pay for the shipping and handling. That's right, free sample and free shipping of the best-smelling, most effective topical pain relief product on the market.
I tried it and it worked. The fragrance is amazing. It has a refreshing scent, so I'm pain-free and smell good too.
The makers of real-time pain relief are so confident that you'll love their product. They're offering you a sample absolutely free, and that includes free shipping. Remember to visit rtpr.com/radio now for your free sample with free shipping. That's rtpr.com/radio. Again, go to rtpr.com/radio.
G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620. 3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com.
Think if you live in a rural area you have to settle for a slow online experience?
We think that's crazy.
Exceed Broadband. It's the highest capacity satellite in the world, and it makes everything faster. Streaming videos, TV shows and movies, sharing photos, video chatting, sending files, and more. New feature,
Late Night Free Zone.
For details, call 800-503-7232. That's 800-503-7232 for Exceed Broadband. Call 800-503-7232. Again, 800-503-7232. Call now, 800-503-7232.
Oh, yeah, the holiday mood here on Clemson Hotline. Appreciate everybody being with us. Hashtag TN Talk, all one word on Twitter. That'll come right to us here on the program. If you're with us in the chat room, appreciate you stopping by. I see we've got some more and more people pouring in to take part in the program, and you can always give us a call at 803-450-0086. Most of the information, if you're watching us live online, is right down here. Everything you need. And I got in such a habit of not giving out that information at one time, and then with the old broadcasting system we were using, Vocal, we had a bunch of issues with being able to even read that. But you can also email us, clemson81@gmail.com. Glad to be here with you. Like to see everybody coming in the chat room. Yes, Corey says, Lawton, please hit the record button for that YouTube video. I did. You know, coming over to Spreecast has been a little bit different, but we've kind of gotten I've gotten things ironed out. I could really use a producer, though. That would be nice. Somebody kind of, in studio to help me out and punch up all the buttons. But had a chance to watch the Heisman Trophy presentation in between the Clemson-Arizona basketball game. Fortunately for any Clemson Tiger fan who wasn't able to make it to the game, you could watch the basketball game perfectly at the half. You flip over to the four-letter network, and there was Johnny Manziel winning the Heisman Trophy. And so I got to thinking, we've talked about how valuable Taj Boyd was to Clemson this season, and I guess the job that Johnny Manziel did against the SEC. The one thing that was very impressive, I think, about Manziel, and the thing that he really had that Taj Boyd never had this season, was one of those Heisman moments. An epic moment. A moment that you could say, that guy is possibly the best player in college football. But I want to say this, too, though, about Manziel. I really feel like a big part of this boost that he got this year was because he was playing in the SEC. How many other freshmen in America have you ever had ESPN buy into so wholeheartedly before? I can't think of a time, maybe going back to an Adrian Peterson, and you could get into the Herschel Walkers of their day and of that era before ESPN really took off. But this is the first time I've ever seen the network almost push the guy's brand to go forward. And I'm not saying that it's a completely bad thing for college football to have a freshman win the Heisman Trophy. But I do think, even when you look back to Tim Tebow winning it as a sophomore, I do think that maybe right now what we've done is we've put this guy further ahead than maybe he is. And you can say statistically 3,400 yards passing, 24 touchdowns. I think he had, 1,100 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns. So, I mean, statistically speaking, it was a fantastic year against the SEC. But on one hand, the SEC is constantly telling me that they're so great because of the great defenses. But then Johnny Manziel, because of what he did, that doesn't say anything about their defenses. It says that that's how good he is. Texas A&M actually had a better season in the SEC than they did in the Big 12 last season. And for me, I get it. The kid's good. Taj Boyd, though, 3,500 yards, 34 touchdowns passing, 492 yards rushing with 9 touchdowns. But that Heisman moment was lacking for Taj Boyd and for a lot of players out there. I just think that this was a product of ESPN and the SEC more so than maybe what was done on the field. And maybe you disagree with me. Maybe I'm wrong. But it just seems that way at this point. And when you think about the SEC and bringing Texas A&M into that league, what better reward for Texas A&M than to have their quarterback win the Heisman Trophy in his first season, in his first year in the league? Look, I can't deny the kid's got talent. That game against Alabama was a thing of beauty. And the one play where he bobbles the ball and finds the wide receiver in the end zone, that's a Heisman moment. That gets played over and over and over. Taj Boyd, however, did not have one of those moments. If he had had a good game against South Carolina, if he would have had a great game at the end of the season, maybe he gets invited to be in New York. But without that signature moment, and you've got to have one. I think if you look back to last season, we talk about freshmen, talk about the impact of Sammy Watkins. There are very few people in college football that have impacted the game like Sammy Watkins did as well as a freshman. The signature moment for Sammy, you could pick him. You could just hand-pick him throughout the entire season. Had Clemson had a better year last year, maybe Sammy gets invited. It's tough for a wide receiver, though, much like it's tough for a defensive player. But the award for being for a truly the best player in all of college football, I don't know that Manziel is. And I'll go ahead and tell you, and this might ruffle some feathers in the chat room, and you can disagree with me if you want to, but I really believe this. This is not going to go over well. I can already tell you it's not going to go over well. I'm going to have to hold it through the break because I know it's not going to go over well with the chat room. But I'll let you know who I think the best player in college football is when we come back from this break. I also want to let you know that Clemson Hotline is presented by DirecTV with a special offer just for our listeners. You can only get by calling 1-800-399-5101. The NFL Sunday Ticket free for the rest of the season. DirecTV's most advanced whole home DVR for free in high definition and 47 premium movie channels free for 3 months. Not available at DirecTV.com. Only available by calling 1-800-399-5101. We'll tell you who we think the best player is in college football right after these messages. Stay with us.
South Carolina low country.
Welcome back into the Clemson Hotline. I'm your host, Lawton Swann. Glad to be here with you. Loving the chat room on the live program here. You can tune in with us live on Clemson Hotline and TigerNet Talk Sunday nights, 9 p.m., Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. It's that easy. The chat room is great. I see Brad and Vicky and Corey all in there, Tommy as well. I told you before the break that I'd let you know who I felt like the best player in college football is. Corey Jenkins jokingly says, is it Logan Thomas? Well, if we were rating on height, then yes, it would be Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is going to go down with some of the legends in all our time at the quarterback position, I think. You can probably file that one under never. Logan Thomas, what a disappointing season for him, and what an overrated player. The thing was, I think, unfair to Logan Thomas. I think he was compared to Cam Newton just because of the size. People saw what Cam Newton did in a year at Auburn and said, hey, look at this kid. Physically built like Cam Newton. Not the same player. Definitely not the same player. But the best player in college football, and you're probably not going to like it, but I'm telling you, this is the truth. And I really think that he's probably the difference in Clemson winning and losing to South Carolina the past 2 seasons. If you take, you got it, I saw the chat room mention it, Jadeveon Clowney. Look, he would have been the first pick in the NFL draft for most people this season, maybe even last season. And we can get into, that he's a plays for the South Carolina Gamecocks if you want to, but I'm just telling you, that skill set that he has doesn't come every day, every 10 years. It's rare you find that ability. So all I'll say is this. If that kid is lining up with the paw on his helmet at Clemson, I really think that he's such an impactful player that South Carolina probably doesn't beat Clemson the past 2 years. Clemson actually gets enough pressure on Connor Shaw 2 years ago. And then this season, I think that it would have been much of the same against Thompson. He is a talent unlike college football has seen in a long time at the defensive end position. And for Clemson's tackles, the best news is that even though you're getting Barkevious Mingo and Sam Montgomery in this one, you've gone up against the best already. The bad news is 4.5 sacks. I was thinking also, as we kind of talked about Johnny Football, the Manziel Trophy, is there ever going to be a trophy named after a player who plays recently, or do all these trophies have to be named after guys who played eons ago? And what player would you say actually would deserve to have a trophy named after him? Are there enough people out there, enough Tim Tebow fans? Because I think Tim Tebow was pretty much hated by a lot of people, unfortunately. I don't think he's a bad guy by any means, but I think people got tired, much like they're going to get tired of Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel, by the time it's all said and done, I guarantee you people are going to say, I'm sick of hearing about Johnny Football or Johnny Heisman or whatever they're going to call him. Corey in the chat room, I like it. I'm going to actually put that up on the screen for everybody. CJ Spiller for some all-purpose yards award. Of course, we all like it because we're Clemson people, but who else out there has been that impactful outside of, I'm telling you, I think the only other guy I could see down the road 30 years or so, people still talking about, may be a guy like Tim Tebow. And it could have something more to do with maybe off-the-field contributions than it does on the field, or a combination of the two. But I don't think that you've had a player who has been so impactful that people just say, you know what, that guy, that kid. If you haven't seen, though, the 30 for 30 Bo Jackson show, fantastic stuff. Bo Jackson's was good. The SEC storied on Herschel Walker was great as well. And when you think about the fact that Clemson was at their prime back then, and in the mix for a guy like Herschel Walker, not really in the mix at all for Bo Jackson. He was going to stay in Alabama, whether it was to play for the Crimson Tide or play for the Auburn Tigers. But those two special players kind of coming through right there at the same time. But we haven't seen the likes of players like that really in a while in college football. A blend of speed and size. We've seen a lot of speed guys. C.J. Spiller won. Spiller's actually proven, I think, this season in the NFL that he can be an every down back. I think he's done that completely when you look at the numbers he's put up. But all told, I think when we talk about players across the United States, have we seen a raw blend of power and speed like those guys offered? I really don't think that you have. Let me tell you how you can take part with us here on the program. Hashtag TN Talk. That's if you're on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Clemson Sports. We bring you Clemson news, notes, information, and more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Email us clemson81@gmail.com or call us 1-803-450-0086. The show always live on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. And if you go there, there's a little place to send us a message. We actually, we've got a quick email to get to. Ray writes in and says he's worried. Tuberville to Cincinnati, so Texas Tech's in the market. We all know that that's where Chad Morris came from. And Ray's absolutely right. Of all the openings that have come out so far, this has been the first one that I really turned my head and said, we've got to be very cautious in this situation. And it could be not only Chad Morris, I think he's obviously one of the top picks that Texas Tech has right now. Defense wins championships, but offense seems to get you interviews. People want to be able to put up points. Scoring points generally is the quickest way to turn your fan base around and make them begin to feel like your program's headed in the right direction. You look at Clemson, 10-2 this year, offense explosion the past 2 seasons, even with a defense that may be lacking in some areas. The 80%, maybe more, maybe 90% of the fan base feels good about things. 90% of the fan base feels like, okay, we're headed in the right direction. And all we have to do is shore up our defense a little bit, and we can be a real legitimate team. So when you look at that, I think Brent Venables is a guy who would like to get into head coaching as well. We all know that. But his name conveniently not really being mentioned right now, even though he's probably got, you could argue, better ties to that region than even Chad Morris, who was a high school coach in the state of Texas. I wouldn't be concerned. I think these guys are staying, to be honest with you, but this clearly bodes the most concern that any Clemson Tiger fan should have had. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444. or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/Seasons by the Lake. I hope to see you on the terrace.
Think if you live in a rural area you have to settle for a slow online experience?
We think that's crazy.
Exceed Broadband. It's the highest capacity satellite in the world, and it makes everything faster. Streaming videos, TV shows and movies, sharing photos, video chatting, sending files, and more. New feature,
Late Night Free Zone.
For details, call 800-503-7232. That's 800-503-7232 for Exceed Broadband. Call 800-503-7232. Again, 800-503-7232. Call now, 800-503-7232.
Attention pain sufferers. Are you one of the millions of Americans who suffer from arthritis pain, back pain, muscle strains, or any other pain? Get pain relief in minutes with real-time pain relief. It can work that fast. If your pain is preventing you from enjoying life, or worse, if pain is keeping you up at night, visit rtpr.com/radio for your free sample. We're so confident real-time pain relief will help you, we'll even pay for the shipping and handling. That's right, free sample and free shipping of the best-smelling, most effective topical pain relief product on the market.
I tried it and it worked. The fragrance is amazing. It has a refreshing scent, so I'm pain-free and smell good too.
The makers of real-time pain relief are so confident that you'll love their product. They're offering you a sample absolutely free, and that includes free shipping. Remember to visit rtpr.com/radio now for your free sample with free shipping. That's rtpr.com/radio. Again, go to rtpr.com/radio.
And now the number one reason to get Genie from DirecTV, the most advanced HD DVR ever. It serves your entire home with one HD DVR. Call now and get a free upgrade to Genie. Packages start at $29.99 a month.
Call 800-399-5101 now. Get 47 channels of HBO Stars Cinemax free for 3 months. That's 800-399-5101.
DirecTV or an RVU-enabled TV device required for each additional room. Additional and advanced receiver fees apply. Offer requires 24-month agreement and qualifying package. $29.99 package not eligible. Offer ends 2/6/13. New approved customers only. Lease required. Other conditions apply. Call for details.
Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com.
Hey, sports fans, listen up. If you're a fan of the Gamecocks, the Citadel Bulldogs, or you just simply get chills from the Tigers running down the hill, then CRM Sports has a weekly show just for you. Even if Cocky and the Tiger make your blood boil, then just tune in for a good laugh. Each week, Gamecock fans hear the CRM Sports show Carolina Crowline broadcasting live from downtown Columbia. And Clemson fans enjoy the Clemson Hotline broadcasting live just miles away from their beloved Death Valley. It's fun, independent, objective, and informative talk about your favorite college team. To listen to the various CRM Sports Collegiate Sports Talk podcasts, visit iTunes and search for CRM Sports, and the action-packed shows will be just a free click away. CRM Sports. Check them out in iTunes and get all the inside info on your favorite Southern team. CRM Sports. We know Southern sports.
Welcome back in to the Clemson Hotline. Tommy in the chat room says the Christmas music is quite a nice touch tonight. Reminds me of being in an elevator at the Poinsett Hotel after crashing some poor business's Christmas party, which have an open bar. Very nice, Tommy. Got a nice rise out of the chat room. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. A whole lot remaining in the program to get to. The hour flies by. Here we are, virtually 27 minutes into the program, just moving right along, and can't believe how fast it goes by. Quickly here, looking at some things from the chat room when we talk about Chad Morris. Corey says that I think that if the Texas job was open right now, then Morris would take it, but not Texas Tech. And Brad says that Chad Morris has to know how awful that Lubbock is, and that if somebody were to take a shot at him, it would be pretty tough because he's still only 4 or 5 years removed from high school. That may be the biggest thing he has going up against him, but it is odd that the name that you're hearing more out of Texas Tech, out of the two, if you're talking Brent Venables or Chad Morris, is Chad Morris. And I think it's because, one, the numbers that Venables put up this season at Clemson didn't exactly jump off the page and make people feel like, oh, yeah, he came in and turned things around. But two, you can look back a couple of seasons and see the job that Chad Morris has done offensively for Clemson. Speaking of coaching, how about Coach Charlie Harbison? He's going to Auburn. Coach Cheese, as he's known by the players and recruits out there, was a key asset for Clemson on the recruiting trail. And recruiting really does begin and end with relationships. And I think that's probably the biggest concern if you're a Clemson fan that you have is the relationship factor that Coach Harbison had with players who you are currently evaluating and trying to bring in to the university. The one thing that Clemson has got to get done, I think, with this hire is to make sure that you not only get a guy who is a great recruiter, but I think in a lot of ways you have a chance to have some addition by subtraction. I think when you look at the defensive backs this season, you could talk about the injuries that really plagued them. You could talk about poor technique, maybe lack of player development. And those things, in my mind and in the minds of a lot of people, fall squarely on Charlie Harbison. So there's a chance that you can go out and get somebody, and maybe you get somebody with a great relationship already set up with some guys who you're bringing in. When you look at Auburn's staff, they completely wiped their staff out when Gene Chizik came in. That's why this opening was available for Harbison. A guy a lot of people have talked about is Tommy Thigpen, who was over there in the same position as Harbison, and he is a guy who has some great relationships with players, perhaps like Montravius Adams, Carl Lawson, and others who Clemson have started to open the door a little bit on. And when you look at the ratings right now and you see that those guys are at the top of the charts, and we've talked about Clemson maybe bringing in a great class this coming season, and my belief that stands firm, and I see more people swaying to my side of things, pulling towards my belief in this Robert Kimdichie situation. It's odd because there was a time when people say, we don't want to talk about it anymore. And now people are kind of scratching their heads, and I see more and more people saying, hey, you know what? Maybe there is something to this. Maybe there is something to the fact that he's earned this opportunity, and perhaps Dabo Swinney has said, you know what, son, go enjoy it. We still want you. Come on and play with us. I'm telling you, until the kid tells us, I'm not going to Clemson, I'm going somewhere else, you shouldn't be concerned. I'm not saying you have to sit around and tell everybody, hey, he's coming to Clemson, he's going to be ours. But if he doesn't say, I'm not, there's no need to worry right now. I still think that at the end of the day, he ends up a Clemson Tiger. When I talked last time, you'll recall, with the folks down at Ole Miss, they said, yes, it's a lock, it's a done deal, people just waiting. Then his brother came out and said in a couple of weeks he's going to sign, it's a done deal. Those things haven't come to fruition. There's been one school he committed to, that's been Clemson. Now, did he decommit? Yes. Why? To take visits. Okay, why? That's the policy. That's what Dabo Swinney laid out. You can't let number one do it and not let everybody else do it. If number one's allowed to be committed and take visits without letting you know and go places that perhaps you didn't know about previously or you weren't made aware of, then everybody's going to do it. And they're going to say, hey, you're not keeping things equal for everybody because he's number one. He gets preferential treatment. You and I could say, sure, that's the way it goes, buddy. He's the number one player in the country. But Dabo Swinney has a standard. He lives by it. It's the reason that these parents really like him. And you could talk about Harbison and the job he's done as a recruiter. But it's Dabo Swinney who closes so many of these deals. He and Jeff Scott are great as well. Not really concerned about what's going on. But I do think, and I think many of you are starting to come around a little bit, is that the Robert Nkemdiche saga is not over. And if Nkemdiche were to come to Clemson, a guy like Lawson, Montravius Adams, can you imagine the defensive line recruiting class? The thing is, too, though, just a couple of seasons ago, you had Stephon Anthony coming in. You had Latique Townsend being a big part of that recruiting class. Tony Stewart, people saying, wow, this linebacking core that Clemson's going to be putting out there is going to be legitimate. Yet it hasn't really developed yet, and you're going into their junior seasons. That's a bit of a frustration. That big bust is what Brad says in the chat room. Big bust on defense so far. I agree. We haven't seen those guys step forward. I mean, I'll tell you, and I'm gonna be pretty harsh about this. When Spencer Shuey is taking the place of 5-star guys, there's a problem in the player development. Now, you could say Shuey has developed into a much better player than he was a year ago, and I agree. We've seen him grow in leaps and bounds. But there is some disconnect when you don't see guys like Stephon Anthony getting better. And we know Tony Stewart's issues with his knees, but for a guy like Latique Townsend to not get on the field as frequently as you would have thought, I mean, there are clearly some areas of concern for me in the development of the big-name recruits that came in a couple of years ago on the defensive side of the ball. The positive is maybe they turn it around. Maybe year 3 is a special year, and all of a sudden your defense improves by leaps and bounds. But no matter what, I think this coaching hire, going back to the Harbison situation that Dabo Swinney makes, I think you got to go after a younger coach than Charlie Harbison for one. Not saying there's anything wrong with a seasoned veteran, but I do think this is a chance for Dabo to hire a young coach who can be just as impactful. And I think you also look at Dabo Swinney and the hires that he's made, they've been great. I would not expect him to have a miss. I think that he will definitely have a superb hire in this scenario, and nobody really would be surprised by that. Well, it's Clemson, it's LSU, it's Tigers versus Tigers. We open the season against Auburn in Atlanta. We'll close the season in Atlanta against LSU. You know, it's been 31 years since Clemson won 11 games. This is a chance again this season for the Tigers to get there. And both of these teams going 10-2 were arguably a game away from playing. No, they were definitely a game away from playing in a BCS bowl game. LSU, maybe you could argue, may have been a game away from playing in the national championship. Had they beaten Alabama this year, maybe they're the team who's playing in the national championship if they get through the SEC championship game. Yeah, this is a chance, really. You talk about statement games, opportunities for Clemson to say, you know what, we've done it. We've arrived. Maybe we lost to South Carolina, but this was a coming of age. I'll say this about this LSU team, and we'll look at them more in a few minutes. This will be, I think you could easily argue, the best team Clemson has played from top to bottom, probably in the past 5 seasons. And that includes some very good Florida State teams, a national champion Auburn team, some of the best South Carolina teams that they've ever put on the field. I don't think when you look back at Clemson, you can find a team that's more respected and better than this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. My goodness, Les Miles took this program after Nick Saban left it and really kept it at the top of the charts. I mean, they rarely have a bad season out in LSU. The Bayou Bengals are a ferocious team. But Clemson, for one, has something that LSU hasn't seen a whole lot of this year, and that's a really good offense. The problem you have is, in the games against SEC competition this year, Clemson's worst offensive totals of the season. Brad in the chat room says John Chavis was licking his chops watching us play South Carolina. And as I recall for Coach John Chavis, speaking of Coach Chavis there, also a South Carolina native, by the way, Dillon County, same hometown as Coach Kevin Steele, for all you Dillon County folks who are listening to the program, but you probably knew that already. But the last time Clemson got their hands on a John Chavis coached defense was against Tennessee in the Chick-fil-A Bowl when Tennessee was ranked number 6 in America, and Clemson came away with a victory back in 2003 to close out that season that ended with a 63-17 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. So it's not unprecedented that Clemson can find a way to beat an SEC coached defense that is coached by John Chavis. The problem is that Tennessee team and this LSU team, you look at the rankings, sure, they were both top 10, but really, do you think that Tennessee team we went up against was anywhere near as talented as this LSU team is? I certainly don't think so. Stay with us here. Final few segments of the program coming up after these messages here on the Clemson Hotline on the John C. Calhoun Radio Network. Yes, Clemson Tiger fans, this is LSU's version of what I would consider to be the greatest fight song in all of college football. If you've never heard it, you can enjoy it here for just a few more moments. It's always a little weird, isn't it? Corey in the chat room says it sounds just wrong. It does. I can tell you this, that's a song, that a version of the song I hope we don't hear a lot of. And here's the other one if you're not familiar with LSU. How about the Chinese Bandits? You'll hear a lot of this perhaps, much like the Tomahawk Chop that the Florida State Seminoles play. If you're hearing a lot of the Chinese Bandits at the Chick-fil-A Bowl, that's not a good thing for your Clemson Tigers. Let's talk, though, briefly about LSU. Zach Mettenberger, their quarterback, of course, he was formerly at Georgia, and last season, surprisingly to a lot of people, I think, could not get on the field behind Jordan Jefferson. But this year, he got out there and, underperformed, I think, for a lot of people's expectations of him coming out of high school. Only 11 touchdown passes on the season to 6 interceptions. He threw for 2,489 yards this year. LSU, though, was a few plays and maybe some Les Miles bad decisions, which people have really grown to fall in love with. You can almost, you hear people say they pulled a Clemson when a team blows a game that maybe they were heavily favored in, and we've said they pulled a Clemson, and we say, you know what, we're tired of hearing that. You could almost say when a coach makes a bad decision, he pulls the Les Miles, right? Is that a fair statement to make? I think maybe it is. Les Miles clock management issues. There was a game a few years ago against Auburn where the clock was running down. You may remember it. I can't place the season, but instead of calling a timeout or spiking the ball, they just ran a play at the end and got fortunate to catch a touchdown pass to win the ball game. But as I see people in the chat room also talking about, and we're going to get to this when we get into some of the mutual opponents that these teams have gone up against this season, they also are a team who played against Auburn, much like your Clemson Tigers, but they only beat Auburn 12-10 this year after Clemson beat Auburn 26-19. The other common opponent was the South Carolina Gamecocks. LSU won that game at home 23-21. Clemson, of course, losing to the South Carolina Gamecocks at home 27-17. LSU also beat Texas A&M 24-19, and that close loss to Alabama, as we mentioned just a few minutes ago. So they are one of the supremely talented teams in America. When you look at that, getting through a team like South Carolina this season, say what you want about them, beating a team like Texas A&M and Mr. Heisman Trophy, Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, LSU fighting tooth and nail against Alabama once again. And going back to the 2009 season, and this is where I think they probably become one of the more impressive teams in America. I'll give you Alabama, and that's about it. I think that's probably the only other team you could probably pull the stats up like this one and say to yourself, okay, that team has had a legitimate run for a number of consecutive seasons. I'll give you Alabama there too. But these are the losses, okay, for LSU since 2009, including bowl games, every game they play. They lost to a number 1 ranked Florida team. They lost to a number 1 ranked Alabama team. They lost to a number 2 ranked Alabama team. They lost to a number 3 ranked Alabama team. They lost to a number 5 ranked Auburn team, a number 10 ranked Florida team, a number 11 ranked Penn State, a number 12 ranked Arkansas, and back in 2009, their only loss since then to an unranked opponent was to Ole Miss back in 2009. That's legitimate football. That's playing some unbelievable ball. I mean, and even in many of those games, they were right there in the mix. A couple of those losses, just the final few moments of the ball game coming up on the short end of the stick. This team is seasoned. This team is prepared. They're prepared for this ball game. The bigger question for them might be, will they have a little bit of a letdown playing in this bowl game? I mean, they had a great year. Clemson had a great year. But this is a team that had wins over some opponents. That's the thing that people are going to knock Clemson on, and maybe rightfully so when you look at the end of the day. Every game that Clemson wasn't favored in, every game that Clemson was playing a team, ranked higher than them in the polls or finishing higher than them in the polls, Clemson lost. LSU, the same thing, though. They lost to Alabama and Florida. So both teams have been beaten only by teams who are currently ranked higher than them in the polls. That's what I was trying to say. I got my words mixed up there. So that's pretty impressive, I think, for both ball clubs. Clemson, oddly enough, led every single game this year at the half. Their halftime final record, what their finals, not score, but the results of the games, Clemson, when leading at halftime, finished the season 10-2. The Tigers were up at the half in every single game. Craig in the chat room makes a great point, and it's something I'm going to put on the screen. It's big boy football. You better strap them up when you go into this ball game and be prepared to have some heavy hitting going on. I don't know when you hear Taj Boyd saying that the Clemson Tigers needed to be more fired up, that you looked at South Carolina's sidelines, you saw guys jumping around, you had the big hit by Swearinger on a guy like Andre Ellington, and then the flex that got everybody emotionally in the stands fired up. But it did set off South Carolina's defense. They got more fired up. Nobody from Clemson went over there to have Ellington's back, to get in Swearinger's face, to do anything to step up and say, you know what, yeah, it's a big hit, but this is our house. And you didn't feel that energy. And when your leader, Taj Boyd, is saying that he didn't feel like that energy was there, that's a little bit of a problem for me. No, it's a big problem for me, because as a Clemson fan who's never had to go through something like we've gone through the past 4 seasons, losing to South Carolina, I wanted my team's emotions to be at a fevered pitch. I wanted to see these guys jumping around, making some ruckus, getting fired up about things. Like I've said for a while now, playing with a bit of an edge. But this bowl game, you're going up against a team much like South Carolina, and a team who I think you could argue, if they're in the SEC East, win the East. I don't think there's any question for the second year in a row, LSU and Alabama, far and away the best two teams in the SEC. The big question becomes, it's almost the opposite of Clemson Tiger basketball. The question does become, can Clemson's defense do enough in this game to keep the Clemson offense in it if they can't punch the ball in the end zone? Or does LSU just run right down Clemson's throats with guys like Jeremy Hill, Kenny Hilliard, Michael Ford, the list goes on and on. Spencer Ware, I mean, they'll just hit you with everybody. They'll just run the ball right up the gut. LSU pounded the South Carolina Gamecocks. What makes you think they couldn't and won't do it to Clemson? Chris in the chat room says it's a major problem, and it is. It's probably the biggest problem Clemson has, and a guy like Vic Beasley, who's very undersized, is going to have a difficult time against those tackles at LSU that could just push him around and open up huge gaps. Clemson has not been great on defense this year against the pass, but in this ball game, you've got to have a Clemson defense that's great against the run. We're out of Christmas music. What better? How about Cody Webb? Cody sat with me at the Clemson, South Carolina game. Great guy. He and his girlfriend. Fantastic people. We'll be right back. 4 years into 5. Buy it on iTunes.
Sneak downtown with my fake ID and watch Doug McCormick rock TDs on a Friday night.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that.
Attention pain sufferers. Are you one of the millions of Americans who suffer from arthritis pain, back pain, muscle strains, or any other pain? Get pain relief in minutes with real-time pain relief. It can work that fast. If your pain is preventing you from enjoying life, or worse, if pain is keeping you up at night, visit rtpr.com/radio for your free sample. We're so confident real-time pain relief will help you. We'll even pay for the shipping and handling. That's right, free sample and free shipping of the best-smelling, most effective topical pain relief product on the market.
I tried it and it worked. The fragrance is amazing. It has a refreshing scent, so I'm pain-free and smell good too.
The makers of real-time pain relief are so confident that you'll love their product. They're offering you a sample absolutely free, and that includes free shipping. Remember to visit rtpr.com/radio now for your free sample with free shipping. That's rtpr.com/radio. Again, go to rtpr.com/radio.
Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you.
And now the number one reason to get Genie from DirecTV, the most advanced HD DVR ever. It serves your entire home with one HD DVR. Call now and get a free upgrade to Genie. Packages start at $29.99 a month.
Call now. That's 800-399-5101. That's right. Call now at 800-399-5101.
DirecTV or an RVU-enabled TV device required for each additional room. Additional and advanced receiver fees apply. Offer requires 24-month agreement and qualifying package. $29.99 package not eligible. Offer ends 2/6/13. New approved customers only. Lease required. Other conditions apply. Call for details.
Think if you live in a rural area you have to settle for a slow online experience?
We think that's crazy.
Exceed Broadband. It's the highest capacity satellite in the world, and it makes everything faster. Streaming videos, TV shows and movies, sharing photos, video chatting, sending files, and more. New feature,
Late Night Free Zone.
For details, call 800-503-7232. That's 800-503-7232 for Exceed Broadband. Call 800-503-7232. Again, 800-503-7232. Call now, 800-503-7232.
final couple of minutes here on the Clemson Hotline for you, and I want to let you know that this is the final episode of the show for the 2012 campaign. We'll be back up January 6th for the live program, but until that time, we will be running Tiger Net Talks on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. We take a little hiatus, get to recharge the batteries for basketball season, and I certainly hope that you will join us on January 6th for the live program. And if you're listening to us on the radio, on the highways and byways, I appreciate you tuning in as well. And I look forward to talking with you in early January also. So come on with us Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. for TigerNet Talk. Of course, everything's on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Thank you to the people over at TigerNet.com for always supporting us. A couple of questions from Chris in the chat room. Well, a statement first. He says, I hope we're ready for fake field goals going up against LSU. Yes, Les Miles is known for those fake field goals. In fact, there was one a couple of years ago that was identical to the play that Clemson ran against Miami, and it was against South Carolina. LSU ran it against South Carolina, and everybody was just hooping and hollering about how it was the greatest call ever, yet Clemson had done it back in, I believe, 2004. That may have been the 2006 game against the South Carolina Gamecocks for LSU. And Chris also wants to know, with Coach Cheese leaving, will that affect recruiting? And that's something, when we were talking about earlier, I think it clearly can have an issue with a couple of recruits here and there. The good news is most of these guys, because they recruit regionally, have some ties to the same players. And maybe, let's throw a name out there for a minute. Clemson's not going to get this guy because of the issues that surround him. But say Trooper Taylor, who was down at Auburn, who's one of the best-known recruiters out there. Now, you can underhanded, shady, whatever people have to say about him, but he's got great relationships with players. If you could bring him in, you kind of bring those relationships. Well, the same type of relationships that maybe Coach Harbison takes with him, Dabo Swinney has an opportunity to bring a guy in who maybe has some better relationships with some players, and maybe you have to do a little work on some others. But ultimately, I think the big thing that people have seen with Clemson that have come to campus is how special Clemson is. And I know that there's other schools out there that can say it, but for me, rarely do you find the beauty in the campus that you find at Clemson. It's just one of those very special places. And unfortunately, we're not going to have time really here on the program. The clock is pushing us to talk about this Clemson Tiger basketball team. I want to say this, though. Clemson versus Arizona was an intriguing game because Clemson played very well at home. I think you're beginning to see Filer come into his own. I really like his play. There's no doubt that he's going to have a chance, Adonis Filer, to be a very good basketball player for Clemson. He's got an edge about him. He's not scared. KJ McDaniels continues to impress me, especially off the dribble, follow-up dunks. I think this Clemson Tiger basketball team, as they move into ACC play, is going to continue to improve. The thing I want you to look at and go back, check the time frames. When Milton Jennings was out of the game, Clemson played its best basketball. And I don't know what that says about your team, but I just wonder, something we talked about before with Brad Brownell, was it a good move keeping Milton? We'll find out as the season progresses, and I'll talk to you in January. Thank you, folks. Y'all take care now, and go Tigers.